All right, let's talk about one of the biggest shakeups in India's professional world. Something huge is on the horizon, and it's all about completely redefining what it means to be safe and healthy at work for millions and millions of people.
So let me just ask you this straight up. Are you ready for November 2025? I'm asking because that's the deadline. That's when this whole new system goes into full effect. And trust me, it's not as far away as it sounds, and it's going to affect pretty much everyone.
And look, this isn't just some minor update or another piece of red tape. We are talking about a single, really powerful new law. It's the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code of 2020, and its whole purpose? To completely change the game for workplace safety across the entire country.
You could say this really marks a brand new era for safety. It's about moving from a really complicated past to a much, much clearer future.
And the scale of this simplification is just incredible. I mean, for decades, workplace safety in India was a mess of 13 different laws, a real patchwork quilt of rules that were often overlapping and super confusing. Well, this new OSH and WC code just sweeps all of that away. It replaces it with one, single, unified modern framework. It's a massive leap forward for sure.
Okay, so what's actually in this new code? What's new? Well, for starters, it expands its reach to cover any place with 10 or more workers. That alone brings millions of people under a formal safety net for the first time. It also mandates things like annual health checks for employees. And get this, instead of just random spot checks, inspections are now going to be risk-based. That means they'll focus their energy on the most hazardous industries first. Plus, inspectors are getting more power. We're talking stricter enforcement, with hefty fines, and even the possibility of jail time for serious violations.
But that begs the question, right? Why was this massive overhaul even necessary? Why now? Well, the answer, it really comes down to the staggering human and economic cost of the old way of doing things.
Just look at this number. 35,000.
That's not just a random number. According to official data, that's how many workplace accidents are reported in India. Every single year. And you have to remember, behind every single one of those numbers is a person, a family, a life turned upside down. So this new code, it isn't just about updating laws. It's a direct, urgent response to a very real human crisis.
And tackling a crisis like that takes more than just writing new rules. It really demands a fundamental shift in how we think, a move towards what's being called a new preventative culture.
And this idea is right at the heart of the new code. The whole goal is to stop being reactive, only doing something after an accident happens. The new focus is all about building a culture of prevention. It's about spotting the risks and stopping incidents before they can even happen.
So this whole preventative culture is built on three main pillars, what experts call OSH. First, you've got safety, which is pretty straightforward, preventing accidents. Then there's health, which is about protecting workers from job-related hazards. And finally, environment, which is all about reducing the impact of industry on the planet. The key thing is, they all have to work together. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like a lot of extra work and a huge headache for businesses. But here's the thing. The real story here is that this new code is so much more than just a legal burden. It's actually a huge strategic opportunity.
Yeah, let's talk about the money side of things for a second. The International Labor Organization crunched the numbers, and what they found is pretty compelling. For every single rupee a company invests in safety, they can expect to save around 3 rupees in return. That's a 3 times return on investment, just from things like fewer accidents, lower insurance costs, and honestly, just better employee morale.
But honestly, the benefits go way beyond that direct ROI. I mean, first, a strong safety culture protects your most valuable asset, your people. It aligns with this global goal of Vision Zero accidents. It's also a huge part of a company's ESG goals, which we'll touch on in a sec. And modern investors, they are looking at this stuff very, very closely. And on top of all that, the code actually has specific rules to create a more inclusive workplace, with new protections for women, migrant workers, and even gig workers.
And just in case you're not familiar with that term, ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. It's basically a framework that investors and even customers use to figure out how ethical and sustainable a company really is. And a strong safety program, that whole OSHE thing we just talked about, that's a huge piece of both the S and the E.
Of course, making this all happen isn't going to be a walk in the park. Implementing a change this big, it's a major undertaking, and there are definitely challenges. But the path forward is actually pretty clear.
It all comes down to building the right skills through education and training.
And we have to be real about what those hurdles are. For one, awareness is still super low, especially in small and medium businesses, which, by the way, employ about 90% of India's workforce. There are also some big questions about how this code will cover the massive informal sector. And on top of all that, we're dealing with new climate-driven hazards like dangerous heat stress that need to be factored in.
So, how do we get over these hurdles? It's all about building those core skills. We're talking about getting really good at hazard ID and risk assessment. Finding the dangers before anyone gets hurt. It means having a rock-solid plan for emergencies. Obviously, you have to know the new legal rules inside and out. But maybe most important of all, it requires genuine worker participation. That means getting everyone from the top floor to the shop floor involved in the safety process.
Which really brings us to the final, and maybe the most important question. When you look at everything we've talked about, this new OHN&W code, do you see it as a burden, or do you see it as an investment?
Because when you really break it all down, the answer seems pretty clear, doesn't it? This isn't just about ticking boxes for compliance or avoiding fines. It's a fundamental investment. It's an investment in people's lives. It's an investment in productivity and the economy. And ultimately, it's an investment in building a safer, stronger, and more responsible future for India.